Hello, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving week. Greetings from Seattle. I am so delighted you guys can join us today. Well, let's talk about what we've got going on today. The theme for today's class is monograms. Only other tool you guys need to have today is something to write with. So it could be your favorite fountain pen, could be your favorite ballpoint pen, could be your favorite pencil. In fact, having a pencil today will be helpful because we're going to do a little bit of drafting and a little erasing here and there. So that'll be fun to have. Let's talk about probably the important thing to hone in on, like, what even is a monogram? The idea of multiple letters being kind of woven together to make a design. If you look at these 4 monograms that I designed, only one of them is actually a true monogram. It really came from the Roman and Greek rulers who wanted to have a mark for their their grand reign and put their name on all the things on the coins to kind of show how great and mighty they were. And we like to see our initials written on things as well. I also have stationery with my monogram on it. Drum roll, please. The correct answer here is actually this one here. And that is because a true monogram is supposed to have the letters intertwined and connected in such a way that they couldn't be separated from one another and still stand alone. Now, the rest of these, though I would still absolutely in everyday use call these a monogram, they are technically referred to as a cipher. So this is just to give you a jumping off point here. So these would be the copperplate letter forms. These here would be kind of my version of modern, but you'll notice the difference here. We've got our copperplate letters that lean like the wind is blowing against them. These ones are growing upright. And for those of you who really love a challenge, we have a script that is utilized by engravers. So here we've got our copperplate capitals. Let's go ahead and do this A. We're going to look at this A up here, and it is that S curve going in an upward motion. And then just straight down on that slant line would be a downward motion. And to make it look thicker, we're just going to either retrace it or add a little bit of a thickening line on either side. You don't have to make it super thick. Your eye can tell the difference. And then we're just going to do that stroke like that. So we do this as a way to remember that concept of thin on the up, start to add that thickness when we're going in a downward motion. The same would be true if we were doing a more oval shaped letter. We're just going to think, hey, I can either look up here to see where that thick stroke comes in, or just think, where is my pen moving in a downward motion? That's where I'm going to add that thickening stroke in there, okay? I'm going to practice with the letter B because I think B's are gorgeous, but you can do whatever letter you want, and you can do it in whatever style you want. Again, if you really like that modern look, go ahead and play with a modern letter. And I'm probably not going to take the time to do a lot of the thickening strokes on all of these, but just so you get the idea, you can add that faux calligraphy look to it. The next is going to be if we have 2 letters. Let's do a letter F maybe. And, just kind of stacking it nearby, but lower, whatever your second initial is. And if it was, let's say it was Francine and Samuel, you could just put a beautiful little ampersand in there. Okay, so this last option, now we were going to do 3 letters. And remember, they're all going to be the same size. And we're just going to write them next to each other. So if you're doing, let's say, your first, middle, and last initial, and we're keeping them the same size, then we would keep that same order where we're going to do the first initial, middle initial, and your last initial. We're going, and I'll try to use some of the other ones in the other examples. So I'm just going to do them nice and evenly spaced. And the same size. I'm kind of running out of space here, but that's my bad. Okay, so they're staying the same size. They look really pretty. They're together. So when it comes to monograms designed like this, where that middle initial is larger, we are going to switch up the order of our letters. So this is actually for Chantelle and Philip Hoffmann. So Hoffmann being our last name, the H, the largest letter in these designs is going to be the middle name. Now, if these first 3 examples here are going to be for an individual. And then the last 3 that we're going to look at will be for couples. Okay. So right now we're just thinking about this is for one person. And the simplest example is, we've got, I think I was supposed to be Anya, but Anaya, Rubina Singh is our example here. So I've written F stands for first initial, M for middle initial, L. So it just follows a pretty simple order here. But the other thing that I want you to play with on this page is, remember how I said it gets kind of complicated when they're all leaning? We're going to turn our letters upright here. For this one, we're going to think upright letters. And I want you to utilize this grid. So we're going to use the full height of the grid for that middle initial. And then I actually do this if I am, engraving a monogram on something, I will take the time to lay out and make sure I've got that these 2 letters are going to be smaller, obviously smaller than my middle initial. So utilize this grid. And so this would just be an A for however we pronounce that name, Anaya. And then we're going to do the last initial, so the S. And you can do whatever style you want to. You can make up some letters here, but we're going to try to do upright. I'm going to try to keep my head out of that camera for you. And then the last one is going to be that middle initial, so it would be R. Okay, that's about as easy as it gets when it comes to figuring out the order. But what if the individual has a hyphenated last name? So we've got Roger Allen Winters Smith. Then what do we do if it's a hyphenated last name? It's not too much more complicated. We just think, okay, we're actually going to consider both the W and the S as last initials, and we will put both of them in there. So when I do a design, I tend to do the larger letter first. So we'll do that W. I'm going to do kind of thin letters here so I can fit them all in. Winters Smith. And then that first initial, so we're keeping small, Roger and Allen. What about you've got an initial and their last name is Maria von Trapp, or here we have like De Stefano, or any of these names that have a prefix before the name. For this example, we're going to do a beautiful D. And, I'll do this part relatively quickly. Enrico, and then his middle initial. Like that. Let's look now for couples. First scenario here is if you have a married couple and they share the same last name. The kind of helpful rule to keep in mind is ladies first. So you're going to use their joint last name. So here in our example, we have Michael and Sarah Lindbergh. So that last initial is going to be the large one that goes in the middle. And you guys can try to, work ahead of me and double check your work here. So am I going to do the M or the S first? Ladies first. So we're going to go with Sarah. And then Michael's going to go here. Okay. What about if they're a married couple with a hyphenated last name? All right, so in this case, we've got Peter and Imani Lloyd Atkinson. So our 2 middle initials are going to be that Lloyd, L, and A for Atkinson. And then we're going to do a wife first, so the I, and Peter. It's come at the end, okay? All right, now what if we've got a married couple, but they have different last names? So we'll do the first initial of, let's see, Alex. Hopefully this makes sense. And Jensen. And with any modern day etiquette things, you would always defer to the couple. So if you wouldn't be like, oh, no, well, etiquette says this is how it has to be done. If this couple says, no, we prefer to have Hunter's name listed first, then you would go with that. But this is kind of the default, is you go with ladies first. So this is Hunter McDonald. So we're doing the M for McDonald and then the H for Hunter. Okay. So I'm going to point out a few things to think about it like faux calligraphy. So let's look at this B, for example. I'm basically going to do the backbone, like the basic structure of a B first, just maybe with some extra loops in it here. And then we are going to add in these thickening strokes. So I didn't exactly follow the lines here, but you get the idea. Is I would go in there and think, okay, where do I add the thick strokes in? I keep this as a reference so I can look back and be like, okay, where do I add that thickening stroke? The other thing I want to point out is I've got two different size letters here. So these ones are going to be the ones that you would use for that middle or larger initial in the center. And then these are more simplified versions. And then before we dive in, I want to show you, we're going to touch on two important flourishing rules. We're not crossing two thick lines together. And then think in oval shapes, okay? Because the ovals are just going to be more graceful than, than circular shapes. So I'm going to look up here. I love L's. So we're going to do that initial first. And again, we're going to just start with that very, I'm going to say basic, but they are, about as fancy as basic comes. These are upright letters. So we're going to make that stroke more upright. So once I've done the basic structure of it, then I'll look back up here and see where those thick strokes are. Now, L is one of the few that almost breaks the rule of two thick lines cross. But you'll notice it's not thick on thick. So I have to end that thick stroke before it hits this part here. So in fact, I'm going to do this thick stroke first. So that when I add this one in, I know it needs to end. I'm looking down here. I'm looking at the more simplified letters here for the G. And again, this would be initially done in pencil so that I could correct placement of things. But for the purpose of this class, we are moving at a nice speed. So already that loop of the L is interlacing. I would probably want to kind of change the placement of that slightly, but there you go. And then the R. So again, I'm looking up here. So I'm going to put my R right in here. Like so. Hopefully you guys are doing the same with your letters. And then adding that thickening stroke in here. Now, if you want, like I've done here where I've not filled in that thick stroke, go ahead and leave it blank because I'll show you here on a following page some of the other fun options. Okay, so this last page here, this is supposed to give you guys some inspiration for, really where you could go with these different designs. We are going to do a sample here with an interwoven rope. The way I'm going to start this one is I'm going to just pencil in. I'll try to do this large so you guys can see it in pencil. A basic, well, not basic. I'm going to try to get loopy with this M. Oops, pushed too hard. Let's get a loopy M coming in here. Okay, so you do your basic structure, and then you're just going to kind of do a second line next to it. And I'm not going to worry about this being any level of perfection right now. And I'm not twisting or winding it together yet. Sorry. I'm not trying to make it look like ribbons are twisting up here or anything. I'm just keeping it, just literally following. All right, except here, I'm going to twist it there. The lines around so that I'm making a double thick kind of a rope, okay? Just very, very rough at this stage, okay? You can do this with whatever initial you want. And then to make it have that like interwoven look, I've got an eraser around here somewhere. I just go through and I think, okay, I want this first one to go over. So I'll erase that, come under. Since this one is over there, then let's make this one. So that one looks like this part goes over. Then I want this part to go over the top. And then this one's going underneath there. So I want to go over the next one. And this one's going under. So I like to kind of think under over if I follow the pattern of the letter. If you had the H, you can think about, you know, how that H could even come. And I'm just going to do this portion of the H, but that could be weaving into the letter as well. So you can really have some play with how the letters weave together. Like so. Okay. You can also mix different lettering styles together. So think about, we're going to go back to this L here, and I'm just going to, it's as simple as I'm drawing some little circles in here. And they can get smaller as the space in there gets smaller, or I can just start filling that space in around it. Okay. And it just elevates your monogram right away, giving it, you know, just a little bit more of that design feel. And then another option here on this side, let's see, kind of in this B, I did it, where you're just doing lines that are very, very close together. And you can 100% put these together. So I could do a few little pearls here. So I'm going to do these little lines in here, just to kind of make it look more finished. I think that's it for today. I appreciate you guys participating today and look forward to seeing you in a future class. Catch you soon. Bye.